Hey, welcome back. I just got myself some tea. We're gonna have a nice little chill session of going through all the books that I'm busy reading to learn more about rewilding. It's a very cold and wet, rainy day today, so as much as I want to be outside and doing stuff, and I'm not going to say that is bad weather, because there's no bad weather, that's another video I'm going to make, but it's a lot cozier and warmer in here, and much better to do a book review. So this is the first rewilding video I'm doing inside, although most of them will probably be outside. But yeah, I just wanted to take some time to go through all of these books that I have right here. I've read probably about half of them, and this is how I'm pretty much learning about everything that I'm speaking about on this channel. I didn't know anything about rewilding until probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago maybe. I always liked being outside. I knew I liked to be hiking and like playing in the mud and building things, but the concept of rewilding was something that was never in my consciousness. And basically, if you don't know what it is, rewilding is basically remembering our connection to the earth and to nature, and the fact that we came from nature. We aren't anything different from nature. Our literal biology is an evolution of nature. And so when we look at the plants, when we look at the sea animals, like, we came from that. So of course we are able to work with that, to heal ourselves from that, to eat from that, to reproduce from that, like everything. It's all interconnected. And so the concept of rewilding is trying to help people, or help humanity, society, like whatever phrase you want to put in there, reconnect and reintegrate with nature. And so if you want to rewild a city, then it's like, how do you reconnect a city with nature? If you want to rewild animals, there's lots of projects going on with that. Like, I know there's some in the UK, which actually is spoken about in this book, Feral. There's the rewilding of the wolves in Yellowstone National Park and up in the northern areas of America, like Washington. And so you can rewild animals and areas, and it's really just taking things back to how they naturally are supposed to be, so that they can operate independently of human input. So yeah, anyway, that's where we're at right now. So I'm just gonna start with the first one on the top here, and this is one of my favorite books I've ever read, to be honest. And since reading this book, I have been the biggest Patagonia hoe ever. I love Patagonia so much, and that was because I read all about their story and what actually goes into the brand, and the fact that Yvon Chouinard, he's not really doing it to make money. Like, he actually just recently sold all of his shares of Patagonia to the Earth. So yeah, you can read more about that if you want to look that up. I'm not going to try and explain that whole thing right now, but the idea of Patagonia is to make super high quality clothing so that you don't have to keep buying clothing. They are the opposite of fast fashion. And so this book really just goes through all the ethics and the business practices that Patagonia have. And this isn't really necessarily about rewilding, but I think it's so incredible how they are able to fit into this very capitalistic society and mindset with a rewilding approach and mindset. And that's what is spoken about in this book. And so, yeah, brilliant read. I actually got it because it's a business book, and I kind of liked Patagonia at the time. So I read it and just changed my mind on Patagonia so much, and also just the way that I approach my own businesses and my own reason for being in life. I feel like now I actually know what I want to be talking about. I know what I want to be teaching, and like the work that I want to be making, all because I read this book and I'm like, oh, I know what the reason is behind what they're doing, and I can get behind the same reasoning even if I'm not doing exactly the same thing that they're doing. So very good book, would recommend. Up next, let's actually start with the rewilding books. So this was the first one that I read that brought up the concept of rewilding. This is by Micah Mortali. He actually lives relatively close to where I'm living in Connecticut. He lives up in Maine, I think, so he's not too far away. It would be super cool to go make a video with him one day. But this is a great book. This breaks down all the theory of rewilding, and then gives you some very practical advice and tips of like how to actually start rewilding your life. I think a lot of it can be a little bit repetitive, and like he goes into like the meditations of things and how to meditate and like different ways of connecting to nature, but that are also kind of in a very similar way. But yeah, once again, an amazing book for the theory and the actual understanding of what rewilding is. So this is the basis for a lot of what I've been building my social medias and message around lately. Up next, we have this one. I just saw, after I read that one, I was in a bookstore in North Carolina somewhere, and I saw this book, and this is just called Rewild Your Life, 52 Ways to Reconnect to Nature by Sarah Sterling. And this is an awesome little book. I love it. It's so beautifully illustrated, and it just gives you different kind of things you can do to rewild your life for each season. So the book is broken up into 4 parts with spring, summer, fall, and winter, and what you can do to rewild your life. Some of them are like location dependent. Like if you don't live in a place that has snow, you can't really do a lot of the things she suggests with snow, or some of the plant life you might not have in your area. So I think the book lacks in that sense a little bit, but for the most part it's an excellent resource to have, and just like fun things to do, especially if you have a family and you have kids. Like this is so amazing, and she did it over the course of a whole year, so one new thing every week, hence why it's called 52 Ways to Reconnect to Nature. And so yeah, just super fun way to learn more about nature. She gives you information about each thing as well, and like where it comes from and how to do it properly and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll probably be turning a lot of these ideas into videos as well. Like hers are all 1 to 2 pages of information about doing each thing, but I think they could be a lot more thorough and like go into detail a lot about some of the things and be made into videos. I think it would be fun, even if I just like try out each of these things once a week. So great book as well. Next, I am going into play. I don't know if you can hear that beeping, but there's an Amazon truck outside my place right now making a weird like screeching beeping sound when they reverse. It's super weird. Anyway, Play, also another amazing book. Play, How It Shapes the Brain, Opens the Imagination, and Invigorates the Soul. I never knew how important play was to us as humans, as a species, as a social species. And like all kids play. It's part of what we do as kids, but for some reason we forget how to play and what play is and the value of play as we grow up. And our society doesn't really create space for play, especially I've noticed in America. I think other countries are better, where adult sports are a lot bigger of a thing and sport is a form of play. But I feel like in America there's not much opportunity for adults to play. And so this book really goes into depth about the importance of play, why it matters, how we should do it more, and really breaks down the theory of what play is. And yeah, how important it is for our evolution, our physical health, and our mental health. So yeah, definitely trying to include play a lot more into my work and my life, and just everything I do is make it fun, because why not? Up next, we have Earth Revealing, Earth Healing, Ecology and Christian Theology. I thought this one was really interesting. I haven't read it yet. I've read a couple pages, and I actually just found this at Goodwill. To preface this, I'm not Christian. I'm not any organized religion. I would say I'm like spiritual, if whatever you want to think of that way. But I was raised Christian, and the majority of the world and the majority of America is Christian. Well, not the majority of the world, but the majority of America is Christian in Western culture. So I thought it was a very interesting subheading of ecology and Christian theology, and like how that works, because Christianity obviously has the creationist story of God created Earth and everything was perfect, but I don't believe in that. I believe in the process of evolution. And so it's interesting seeing this analyzing Christian from a more like scientific ecology, nature point of view. I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. So I started reading it. Like I said, I only read a couple pages, but what I did read was very interesting. And it speaks about like environmentalism, and like the human and non-human world, And yeah, so it actually brought up a lot of the similar concepts that were brought up in the Rewilding book by Micah. So yeah, I definitely want to get into this more. It's just a very heavy book. Like, it's dense. There's a lot of information. It's almost more like a textbook than an actual book, like a reading book. I actually think it might be someone's like thesis or something. So yeah, it's pretty heavy reading, but I think it'll be good. This one I bought a while ago because I heard so many good things about it. This is Feral by George Monbiot, Rewilding the Land, Sea, and Human Life. I've not liked reading this book, and I want to so badly. I've tried 2 times now, and both times I got to like 20, 25 pages, and I just don't like his writing. I think he rambles on and waffles on about too many random things that have nothing to do with the point he's making, and he just goes on these wild tangents about his own life or his own story, which is cool, and like that's his style and that's his own personal story. Like, I appreciate that, but I like reading books for the information and the point they're making, and when authors take forever to get to the point, I just don't enjoy reading it. So I'm sure it is a great book. I've heard a lot of good things about it, and the concept of it is rewilding. And it talks about the story of like rewilding in the UK. And I want to read it, and there's part of me that's like, I should just push through and just try harder. But I also don't want to read something if I don't enjoy the process of reading it. So maybe I'll just skip ahead and like go to a different chapter or something. But it is a very like poetic, novel-y kind of book rather than like a factual. I mean, there are facts in it. I don't know. I just don't like his writing, but should be a good book. Let's go on to this one. This was a book I read a long time ago called Leave Only Footprints, and it's about a guy that traveled to every national park in America. And I read this over the course of my cross-country road trip across America the first time I went. And it was really cool to read about all the national parks and their history and some stories from them while I was in these national parks. And this isn't necessarily about rewilding, but it is just the lessons of connecting with the land and especially national parks. So Leave Only Footprints by Connor Knighton was a fun read. Let's go, while we're on the lighter subject, this is Tales from America's National Parks, Campfire Stories. And I think I got this also at Goodwill, but I'm pretty sure they sell it at REI and like every outdoor store ever. And yeah, it's just cool little campfire stories about each national park as well, and like goes into some indigenous stories as well, and like, yeah, animism and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed reading this. It's also a nice, easy read, and like if you have kids or a family, definitely a good book to pick up. And yeah, it's just about reestablishing our connection with nature and finding our place in nature through storytelling, which is what I'm trying to do with all of my work as well. So that's a good one. This one I want to read so badly. I have just not, because it's also a ginormous read. It is very thick and the words and letters are very tiny. But I know that this book has so much value and it's a banger. This is The Portable Thoreau. So it's a combination of books from Henry David Thoreau, who was a naturalist in the 1800s, I believe. He wrote Walden, which was around Walden Pond, which was a series of poems and essays and writings that he compiled while living at Walden Pond in Massachusetts in basically isolation for, I think, 2 or 3 years. And it was basically just all the things he learned from reconnecting with nature and the land and his reflection on society, because society was becoming more industrialized and more technological, and he went the opposite way to go live at a pond for a couple of years and just reflect back on society and the way it was moving, as opposed to where we had come from, which is connected to nature, being nature. So yeah, ton of stuff in this. I just need to sit down and put my head into it. Let's go to The Uninhabitable Earth. I'm sure you've heard of this one before. Yeah, this is a depressing read. This basically tells you everything that's going to go wrong with our planet if we don't fix our shit. And if we keep doing the things that we're doing. And so, yeah, it's not fun. There's nothing fun about this book. It basically is just like a doomsday prophecy of what's going to happen with climate change if we don't change the way we are acting. And while it is good and it is valuable and it is that scare factor, I don't believe this is the best way to change the planet. I don't think people take action through fear. I think people take action through love, through the love of something. I think people are far more likely to protect the environment if they care for it. If they're just getting scare tactics thrown at them, how are they getting closer to nature? How are they connecting with it? They're just becoming more scared of nature and withdrawing themselves even further, which again creates that divide and separation, which is causing the thing in the first place. So that's why, like, even I have a really big problem with some climate change activists and groups and organizations because they're really pressing on that fear button to get attention rather than the love button and creating the love and connection for nature. Because when we care about something, we protect it. And that's what I think we need to be doing. And there's so many people and organizations that claim to care about nature and the environment that aren't showing that through their work. That's just my belief. But yeah, so I didn't really like Uninhabitable Earth. It's a good book, but yeah, just very dark and depressing. Okay. Up next, we have The Sixth Extinction. I haven't read this one yet, but I've heard it's very good. But part of me feels like this is the same as The Uninhabitable Earth, where it's also just fear-mongering. I don't know, it might be more educational. We'll see. I hope it's not all doom and gloom, and they actually give solutions. Because that's another problem, is like so many organizations and people that say these things and like write these books don't give any practical solution of like how to change things. They just say like everything's gonna end and we're gonna die, and it's like, okay, well, what can we do about it as an individual right now? Like, what solutions do you have? And like, even blaming big corporations, like, that's not gonna change anything because they're gonna keep doing what they're doing because they're making money. So what can we as individuals do? And recycling is not gonna do anything really. So we need some really big change. And again, my belief is that helping people connect with nature on an individual basis makes people care for nature more. And if we can do that collectively as an entire world, that's how real change will happen. Onwards. This one is The World Without Us. I started reading this. I've read about a quarter of the book so far, and this one was very cool. It was very interesting. It was just like a dystopian world, basically. So the premise of the book, it's almost more like a storybook than an actual factual. It is factual. It does present facts, but it's presented like an apocalyptic movie in a way, where the premise of the book is, if human life disappeared off the face of the planet right now, what would happen to the world? And essentially, I've only read a quarter, but basically the world would go back to being nature. Nature would take over everything and nature would be fine. Nature would evolve. It would break down all of the houses, all of the plastics, everything that we've created. Within about 10,000 years, it'll all be gone. And that's super cool about nature. So that's why even the doom and gloom prophecies of climate change, I'm like, nature's gonna be fine. Like, sure, each individual species won't be fine. The ones that die out and get extinct, that's not cool. But nature as a whole will be fine. It will recover. The strongest will survive and thrive and evolve and rebuild a new Earth, a new society. So not that I want a global catastrophe or climate change to happen, but if it does, I think nature will be fine. That's my opinion. So yeah, The World Without Us, very cool perspective. We have this one, the Green Thumb Book of Fruits and Vegetables Fruits and Vegetable Gardening. I found this at Goodwill, and yeah, it's basically just like a textbook for growing fruits and vegetables. It's very old. I don't even know when it's from, but it's got to be from like the 1970s or 80s, I would say. But a super cool book, and just gives you like very practical advice to starting your own fruits and vegetable garden. So I want to read this more, and I actually started. I cleared out my whole garden bed so I can plant a fruits and vegetable garden this spring, summer, fall. So I'm very excited about that. On that note, I also have this ginormous book, which I found in Vermont. I don't even know where this came from, but it's called Food Gardens, Indoors, Outdoors, and Under Glass. And it just gives you a ton of information. And the illustrations in this book are so beautiful. And this was basically like an entire website of gardening before the internet existed. So it just gives you like information about every kind of plant, every fruit, every vegetable, every way to like start a garden, and like build a greenhouse and harvest your crops and plant seeds and when to do it and how to do it. And yeah, it's very cool. It's an awesome book. I don't know where you would find this, but yeah, I found it at some thrift store in Vermont, and I had to have it. Okay. Last one on plants. I also found this at Goodwill. This is just the illustrated Encyclopedia of Herbs, and yeah, it just gives you, it's like a field guide. Well, not necessarily a field guide because it's massive, but it gives you a breakdown of like all different kinds of plants and what their medicinal uses are, what you can, like some of them if you can eat them, some of them if they are poisonous, or yeah, just gives you a whole bunch of really cool stuff and how to identify the plants. So that's a great way to start learning about your immediate environment. And yeah, obviously it's going to be specific to what area you live in. I'm in New England, so a lot of these species are in New England. And then last one, I found this recently also at Goodwill. I tend to do that. I just go, unless there's a book that I really specifically want, I will go onto eBay and buy it, because it's only like $4 or $5 if you buy a book through eBay, and that's so much cheaper than buying a book new for $20 to $30. So yeah, I'll buy on eBay if I want something specific, or I will just browse Goodwill and see what speaks to me. This is the latest one that spoke to me at Goodwill, and this is How to Be an Explorer of the World. And it basically just gives you like different activities to look at the world differently and like see things that you wouldn't normally see. I very much do this already, just with the way my brain works, and like being a visual artist, I'm always looking out for new and wonderful things, especially in nature. But this is a very practical guide for people that don't have the same mindset and like need that push to do so. So it'll give you like little activities of like noticing different things, or collecting certain things, or creating a little mini ecosystem of different plants, or like finding different bugs or something like that. So yeah, I actually like this as more for inspiration to do my own version of this, to be nature specific, because this isn't necessarily nature specific. This could be like in a city as well. So this, like one example is an activity is like find the color red throughout your walk today, and like how many shades of red do you see, where do you see them, what objects are red, blah blah blah, things like that. So that could be in a city. But yeah, I want to make something like this that's a lot more nature focused, and I think that would be really cool. So yeah, I'm trying to think what other rewilding specific books I have right now. I'm just looking at my bookshelf to see that I haven't missed anything. No, I think I've got them all. The other books that I have are creativity books, art books, design books, business books, and like animals and stuff. I have like an African safari. I have some National Geographic books, which also play into the rewilding thing, but it's not as specific on each of them. So yeah, I think that is my book tour. This video is 24 minutes already, so if you made it this far, thank you so much. I'm very happy to have you as a part of this channel. I am enjoying making these videos so much because I don't feel any pressure to make them. It feels very authentic and raw and honest and real, and it's something that I really care about, so I hope that comes through in what I'm saying. Yeah, if you have any questions or concerns or suggestions for other books, please let me know in the description, not in the description, in the comments below. And subscribe for new videos, and let me know if there's any specific videos you want to see. And yeah, that's gonna wrap up this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys outside in the next one. All right, bye.